Hey, welcome to another episode of the Innovation Mindset Podcast, powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. I am Mark McNeese, your host, and today we have a special guest in Josh O'Connor, who was selected to be one of the 5 under 35 CEOs who started a business before they were 30 years old. We just had the event and he was in, and he was nice enough to spend an extra day and come into studio and tell us about his company, RennWorks Out. Josh, thanks for coming in, and tell us just a little bit about your experience yesterday, and then we'll jump into the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. I had a great time yesterday being able to speak with students in the Jim Moran Institute and to come back to FSU. It's been a while since I've been back to campus, so to see where everything's moved towards and to see the innovations that have been made for the College of Entrepreneurship, it's fantastic to be back. We had a great event yesterday. I got to meet some cool other panel members from
Nice.
the other 4 guys that were there with us, and to speak with students. It was awesome to be back on campus.
That's cool. So tell us a little bit about RennWorks Outdoors. Tell us a little bit about the name first, and tell us just a little bit, a 30,000 foot view of kind of like what you guys do. What would you explain that like your company does?
Okay, so for the name was kind of something we fell into. We actually based it off of one of our other businesses, which is Renico. It's our leasehold company, and that's actually our last name spelled backwards. Is where that came from. And then the RennWorks name was something that we just kind of collaborated on and came up based off of that, and it just kind of stuck. It was just a name that we kind of used as a placeholder, and before we knew it, 6 years later, here we are, and it's still there.
There you
So
go.
that's kind of where the name came from. And mostly what we do, we're a high-end fishing boutique is what we like to call ourselves.
All right.
So we've taken the standard outfitter model and taken it to the next level, where we want to create a customer experience and provide our customers with a one-stop shop with everything they need. And it's worked very well for us in our location where we're at on Amee Island. Many of our customers, it's their 3rd, 4th homes. And so whenever they travel down, they'll call the shop ahead of time and say, hey, I need you to put this package of gear together. We'll have it ready. And when they show up, it's there. So we're doing more of a catered to experience for our customers.
Yeah, kind of concierge for fishermen, maybe.
Very much so.
All right.
Very, very much so. And as our community grows where we're at there, as the rest of Florida is doing right now, it's exploding. And so our customer base is growing very, very quickly, and it's worked very well for us. The business model we know wouldn't work in every community, but where we are, it has seemed to take off.
All right, nice. Well, we'll definitely dig deeper into that in a little bit, but I'd actually like to get to know you a little bit better about your origin story, like where are you from? What kind of family did you grow up with or in, and kind of your entrepreneurial kind of exposure as a young person?
Okay, so I'm very blessed. I'm actually a 5th generation entrepreneur.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up in a family where entrepreneurship was embraced. We were in the construction industry, in the leasehold business, a little bit in the aircraft industry. Both my grandfather and great uncle were A&P mechanics. So got exposed to a handful of different business models growing up, which I count myself very fortunate to have been in those situations. So grew up learning critical reasoning skills, being able to solve problems that you face as an entrepreneur that I still face today. And I look back on those times and go, man, I'm happy I've experienced these to be able to know somewhat how to deal with them. Now, retail's a whole new experience for us, but being able to experience those. So kind of moving forward, growing up in those businesses and then coming to Florida State, majoring in accounting, I kind of figure, well, numbers are the base of pretty much all businesses. So better know the numbers.
All right.
So going through and then getting a CPA after I graduated, working at Deloitte, and then coming back out of that experience and launching this business was kind of something different, kind of fell into it a little bit. I knew I wanted to be back in the entrepreneurial space. Didn't necessarily think it would be in retail. I had kind of an opportunity come down where we were working on another project for another business and opened up an account with one of the largest at that time fishing distribution companies in the country. And so we ended up opening with those guys, started in a small 800 square foot space, continued to kind of build it. We've remodeled. We're up to 2,400 square feet now.
Nice.
With 2,500 square feet of warehouse in the back. And so it's continued to kind of morph and to grow into something much larger than we thought it was going to be in the beginning. And we've grown from few SKUs up to now, I think we're over 20,000 SKUs in store.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to diving deeper into that. Before we do that, though, when did you go to FSU? So you got your undergrad and grad in the college business?
That's correct.
Yeah. So when did you come, and how do you feel like your education prepared you, if you do think it prepared you for running your own business?
So I started in 2010, came into the Florida State with the mindset of going into the College of Business and Accounting. Graduated in 2013 with my undergraduate accounting degree, and then went to FSU for my graduate degree in taxation. Graduated in 14 with that. And the professors here really gave me a great baseline with the accounting. I mean, the accounting curriculum, as rigorous as it is, you learn a whole new language, and you learn how to handle numbers and manipulate the numbers and where they need to be. And even to this day, whenever I meet with my accountants, because people ask me all the time, like, oh, you file your own taxes, right? I'm like, no, I do not touch my own tax return. I'll do the bookkeeping for it, but I want someone else, if I ever get audited, that they can go to fight for me.
Right.
And so, but to this day, I still use my skills that I learned here to build spreadsheets, to interact with bookkeepers, accountants, do budgeting. I use my skills that I learned here all the time for budgeting,
Nice.
to be able to build, to see where we're going. And in retail, with the way the structure works, they tell you what you can buy it for and what you can sell it for. So you have to be able to get every piece of margin out of that you can. And being an accountant, being kind of trained in that way, first thing is you look at the numbers every time. And so it helps you to build a more profitable business.
Yeah. So as you look back at your college career, and you look at yourself as a founder and CEO of a successful business now, were there any classes that like you wish you took, that you feel like there was kind of a knowledge gap, like when you got into actual business and it was like, oh, wow, I mean, I need to figure this out, but I wish I took this class or whatever?
A couple of different areas. One of them, I wish I would have taken some more marketing-based classes. I would love to have had. And at that time, social media, it was there, but it was nothing like it is now. I wish I would have maybe taken a couple of classes focused in that. I would love to have some more knowledge on social media. Also looking at it from the standpoint of being able, I see now there's all these retail classes, which would have been awesome. I would, and to be honest, I would still love to sit in on some of them and go, maybe I can fix some of my techniques based on what they're teaching now.
Yeah.
But really the way I look at it is I wish I would have taken maybe a few more marketing courses. I did take some of the early Jim Moran courses while I was here and received a certificate in entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay, nice.
Before I graduated. And I look back on those classes, Dr. Devers' Keystone class where we wrote a business plan. I still have the business plan. I still hold it and reflect back on it and look at it and see how it was structured.
Did you write a business for RennWorks Outfitters? Is that what you did?
I didn't. I wrote a different business while I was here.
Oh, okay.
And didn't move forward on that one. Looked at it a little bit closer and just decided to kind of pivot off of it. And at that time was still having accounting as my major degree. I kind of had to put it on the back burner. And if I said, well, if I want to be a CPA, I have to hit the 1 year work requirement. And I had an offer from Deloitte. And so I said, well, I'm going to take the offer, get a couple years under my belt, kind of get settled after getting out of school, get the CPA exam passed, and then I'll reevaluate, which is exactly what I did.
Okay.
I wouldn't trade my time at Deloitte. It wasn't an entrepreneurial time, but
no,
it wasn't in the least. But it was a wonderful time to be able to network. It was great to be able to learn the software that was there, and I still use many of those skills now.
Nice. So I think you said you come from a family and there was 5 other founders or 4 other founders. Are you the 5th or 6th?
So I'm the 5th.
Okay, so you're the 5th founder. What was the scale of the other 4 family members who modeled entrepreneurship? Were they doing lifestyle entrepreneurship, or were they like building big companies? What were you observing? What were they building?
So they were building primarily, they were in the construction industry, in the commercial industry, and we mainly built for ourselves. So what we did, my grandfather and great uncle were identical twins, and they moved to the area there we are in Amelia Island in the 1970s, and they purchased a 48-acre parcel of property there. So we owned an
nice.
industrial park.
Yeah.
And at that time, Amelia Island was nothing. The roads, a lot of them were mostly dirt. I mean, it was just a small fishing village on the coast at that time. So it wasn't anything like it is now. And the way they kind of started was they lost the bid to run the airport there, being A&P mechanics. So they had to pivot to a different model. And so they started, they were going to build hangars was what they were initially going to do. Started building buildings, saw the feasibility for aerospace rental wasn't there. So they started leasing them to other businesses. And so just slowly, as one building would get leased, get some capital back underneath it, they would finance, build the next building, and just kind of kept building piece by piece.
Okay.
So it was mostly building for ourselves. We built some other buildings outside of that, but it was mainly just trying to attract great employers to the local community. And we were able to bring in one of our long-term tenants. They were in the solvent business, great high-paying jobs. And so that's what we wanted to do, was build this park, this industrial area, even though we're on an island. And we say industrial, it's really more like commercial. But we wanted for innovative businesses to be in there. And it's gone very well, but it's a 50-year plus project.
Yeah. So you were saying did you ever actually work in that business, or were you just part of the family and that you just knew what they were doing?
So I did work in it. I often joke with people, I drove a tractor way before I drove a car.
Okay.
So by about the time I could walk, I was out there with them just about every day I could be out there. I was interacting in the business. I was on construction sites. I was, even when I was in college, I was still doing some things remotely on the bookkeeping side. And so it was something I was very heavily invested in. And that's because the knowledge was just so great.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how valuable was that time to you when you think about where you're at right now? Like, how much value transferred into what you're building?
It helped me to build kind of this grit going through it, seeing how because I got to see early on, we have to make payroll this week. You have to, we're negotiating with banks to get funding. We're doing all of these other things. So being able to be in those environments, and I was fortunate enough, they would drag me along even when I was younger. I'd say, hey, I want to go with you when you go to meet the banker. I want to go when you go to see the accountant, the attorneys. I want to see how this works. And being able to see that, it gave me a step up moving into my business, because I already had a great network of professionals that knew me, knew the family, and I was able to kind of pivot and move right into that and just springboard off of that forward.
Nice.
And so it was a great advantage to have that and to be able to, because I know if you're trying to get started without having those connections, it's hard to get a bank to talk to you. It's hard to get these other things to fall into place, but already having a relationship in the community and saying, hey, we want to springboard off, start a new business. This is kind of how it's going to move forward. Being able to get some access to some credit lines and some other things was very accessible.
That's one of the things as a professor that I really try to teach my students, that, like, work on your network now. Don't wait till you graduate and get on LinkedIn and start cold messaging people and trying to, like, scramble. Like, do it now. And I tell them there's two reasons. Number one, most business people love to help college students, so they're happy to help. Number two, once you graduate, they're not going to be there to help you anymore. So take advantage of it now. And I tell them we live in an amazing time where you can reach out to CEOs of major companies and they'll respond to you. Not all of them, but, like, I mean, it's just, you have incredible access to mentorship and networking. And it's surprising to me how few students really take that aspect, the networking aspect, really seriously in their college. I think it's just an extra thing, and they think it's just something that they'll do later. And I think it's a mistake. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. People are much softer to college students, but the minute you graduate, they see you as a competing professional, and they are nowhere near as accommodating. But if you say, hey, look, in the College of Entrepreneurship, I'm working on this project. Can you help me out? Can you give me some insights? They'll probably meet you for coffee or get on a call with you just to say, yes, would love to help out. But like you said, the minute you graduate, all that stops.
It stops cold, and I think it rattles a lot of students. Like I've had students come back and say, I should have taken you more seriously on the networking thing because I can't get anybody to talk to me.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell them, I'm like, play the poor college student card. Like my mean professor's making me do this project, and I've identified you as somebody who can like really help, and I'm like, that's the way to do it, and you'll get a lot of help. And the students who take advantage of it are able to connect with like amazing people and everything. But unfortunately, some don't take it very seriously.
Yeah, you really have to use your time wisely while you're here. I mean, the professors are phenomenal. I still look back at some of my professors and some of the stories they told, the lessons they taught, I still use them. And so to me, I think if you're not embracing the time while you're here, especially with the way Jim Moran, the Institute has now been built, the resources are limitless. And really, to me, if you're going to try to build something new, do it while you're here if you can, with the incubator and everything else that kind of goes on and along with that. Utilize the resources because it doesn't really get any better. And really, once you get out, and if you'll call it the real world outside of the college experience, it gets very harsh very quickly.
Yeah, I think back like when I went to college, they didn't have anything like the Jim Moran College has. Like students can go and get a $5,000 micro grant that they don't have to pay back to start their own business. And it blows me away. If I was a student, I'd be signing up for that every time they let me, and all the pitch competitions where they can win real money, like a lot of money. And it's interesting to me. There's definitely a few students that take like advantage of it and they do really, really well. And then there's other students that seem like they couldn't, it's like, well, why would I do that? I don't know. I think like those opportunities, like missing those opportunities is a real mistake for their career.
I would agree. I think that that's awesome. I hadn't heard about the $5,000 grant. That's incredible.
Yeah. When you graduate, nobody's giving you $5,000.
No. So, if anything, they're asking you for money.
Yeah. So the access to capital and networking while you're in college is just so important. Basically like I tell my students, there's two things that is going to determine how much revenue basically that you make. And one, it's your network, who you networked with. And then number two, how well can you present an idea to another person or a group of people? Just be able to communicate that idea in a clear and compelling way. I said, if you build your network and you learn how to communicate an idea in a clear and compelling way, there's no limit on your income.
Oh, 100%. You can take it and go before, if you get to the point where you need VC, you can go before a VC board and say, look, this is what I have. Or if you're trying to raise private funding, you can do that as well. And there's plenty of funding out there now. It seems more than ever. Generational wealth that's being passed down with the baby boomer generation that's passing. There's capital out there.
There's a lot of capital.
It's just a matter of, can you be, like you say, compelling enough to get them to invest in the product or business, whatever that might be.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's circle back to your business, and I want to just kind of like dive in a little bit deeper, especially you being at Deloitte for a couple of years and then pivoting, I believe, to your current business. Is
That's
that
correct?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, because that's scary, right? You're in one of the most famous companies. You are doing accounting and I would imagine consulting, and with a very prestigious brand. And like, what was the catalyst for you to say, like, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself?
It was a little nerve-wracking, and actually whenever I resigned, I got that question many, many times. And inwardly, there were some dynamics going on. I loved my time at Deloitte, but there were some dynamics that were going on with the way the workload was working and some other things that were going on at the time, that there was just something within me that said, if I'm going to do this, now's the time to do it, because if I get much older, it's going to be much harder for me to do this. So if I'm going to take this leap, I need to do it relatively soon. And I was able to kind of leave Deloitte and go to I worked at a smaller firm for one tax season after that. And so I had the offer to do that. And I said, well, I'm going to take this and try it. because the Deloitte experience, like you said, that is kind of the pinnacle
Right.
of companies. They are, at that time, I think they had 67,000 employees, largest firm in the world. And it was great to start there, great to work with them, still speak with my coworkers that I had there, left on a good note. But it was just, I figured it was time. If I was going to try this, I really needed to springboard out and just go for it. And I tell guys, I was like, just don't overthink it.
Yeah.
You just got to kind of get in it, put your head down, hope for the best, and just keep running until you can't, and just see what happens. But it's scary to kind of make that decision. And I tell a lot of guys that want to start a business that that's one of your hardest decisions, is actually making the commitment.
So you have this kind of like industrial commercial leasing kind of family background, and then you personally become a CPA and you're a consultant and working at Deloitte. Where did the high-end boutique fishing business come from?
So, like, almost kind of fell into it, to be honest. It was something that we were working on a project on one of our commercial businesses, had the chance to work with a very large brand that was a huge distribution company. Unfortunately, they just went bankrupt last year. They took some bad moves, but they were a company where they carried, I bet you they had 50,000 SKUs. And so always liked to fish, had our construction office said, well, we're going to bring some combos in on top of this other project, see what happens, some fishing combos, let's see how it sells. It worked relatively well. We had an 800 square foot space that was open, and we said, well, let's move over there, let's invest some money, let's see how this kind of goes. Started kind of rolling, and we said, well, let's just try it. Let's just jump into it. Let's take some time. Let's really get into this and see how this is going to work and get the dynamics. Didn't realize COVID was on the horizon.
Yeah.
We actually opened that 800 square foot space to the public in October of 19.
Okay.
And so COVID was just being spoke about over in China and Japan at that time. And we were hearing a little bit about it, asked our manufacturers, said, hey, what does this mean? Because they're starting to shut China down. They said, we have plenty of product stateside, which did not end up being true, but really just it just morphed. It just kind of started working itself out and together. And then as we saw demand was there, we just kind of we call it feeding the beast. We just kind of kept feeding it and making it run until it's where it is today.
Interesting. So you said you started in October of 19, and then I think it was around March of 2020 where basically America shut down. So what, November, December, January, February, March. So you're in business for less than 5 months and the government shuts down the economy. What are you doing at that point?
So a couple of things went through our minds. We said, well, we've come this far and we've already invested all this capital into it. We're going to keep going. If it fails, it fails. But for right now, we're going to keep rolling. Let's see what happens. I called the health department in our local county and they said, stay open. They said people use fishing for food. They said for gathering of food, so we need you to stay open. They said do not close. They said just do safe practices while you're there. And they said if you can, maybe do some curbside if people want to come up and those kinds of things. So we were very blessed we did not have to close. If we would have had to have closed the business in that infancy, we would have probably just canned it and moved on.
Right.
Because it wouldn't have survived. The hardest part that we had through that time was the fishing industry actually boomed during that time. It's all one of the biggest booms it's seen in the industry in decades. Our problem was we didn't have back inventory. Being so new, we had what we had, and we couldn't get any other inventory at the time. And so that was a big struggle for us. And COVID was one of those, we kind of waded into it. Thankfully, the beaches where we were stayed open. People got out and fished. So we stayed. We actually were very busy we just couldn't do like a grand opening or anything because no large crowds, nothing like that. So that marketing aspect kind of hurt us a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And yeah, I forgot that boating and fishing actually really accelerated during COVID. So at that time, I owned and was the CEO of a local company called Red Eye Coffee, which is the complete opposite kind of dynamic when your business model is get a bunch of people sitting close together for a couple hours having a cup of coffee in a closed space. COVID was a little more difficult to navigate through that.
Oh yeah, we had some friends in the restaurant industry, and I feel
It
I
was
feel for all
brutal.
of y'all during that time because there was nothing you could do. It was all
Yeah.
government mandated, so
Yeah.
there's nothing that you can really do to fight against it. And so, I mean, many good restaurants and coffee shops and things went out of business, and it was really none of their making or wrongdoing.
Yeah. No, we were really fortunate. At the time, I had a COO who she actually ended up buying the company from me and became the CEO. And she just did such a fantastic job. And it was one of those things like I'd been in the business long enough. I didn't like have my heart really like passion in it anymore. It was time for me to do something else. Plus, she was doing a better job than I could ever do. And I'm like, you should just buy this thing. And she's like, okay. So it was, it worked out really, really well. So tell me a little bit so what you're explaining is new to me. I guess I'm not in the tax bracket of your typical customer. So is it just like tackle and stuff, or are you booking them charters? Like what are your offerings, and like why do these affluent customers come to you versus go to Target, I guess, or whatever, another fishing store?
So the way we've worked the business model is we carry some of the same items your big box stores will carry, but we try to do it, especially with SKUs that they don't carry, because we can't beat them on price.
Right.
Pricing is they will cut minimum as advertised pricing, which is what we're all supposed to sell products for.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart thinks it does not apply to them, and they buy so much the companies don't care, and so they will kill you on pricing on some of those base items. So what we did is we said, well, we're going to get to the next level of items that Walmart does not carry,
Mm-hmm.
because big box, there's a lot of small shops, unfortunately, I fear won't make it the next 5 years because of big box.
Mm-hmm.
There's that and the internet are killing your normal mom and pop, just regular tackle shop.
Right.
And we're seeing that kind of across the state. The higher end, there's a great group of higher end shops in the state, and they're all thriving. But if you're in that same market as like a Walmart or an Academy,
Yeah.
it's a struggle
Yeah.
to really keep the doors open and keep moving. And so we kind of noticed that early on, and that's how we kind of transitioned to where we are. So we cater to fly fishing, we cater to big offshore fishing,
Mm-hmm.
shark fishing, those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things that require specialized gear and a specialized knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we found our niche. We said we want to be here to be able to provide local knowledge, and then also we outfit guys that want to travel to like the Amazon, Patagonia. We have customers that travel to Belize. They travel all over the world. And so what we do is we try to become knowledgeable of those fisheries as well, so we can
Mm-hmm.
outfit them. So when they get there, because most of these places, when you get there, if you didn't bring it, you're not going to have it.
Right.
And so customers are buying extra rods, they're buying extra reels, they buy extra line, they buy all these extra packages of items to go with them down there. So that's kind of where we found our niche, is not only for our local fishery, but we want to service you. If you want to travel across the world and go fish, we have everything that you need to do that.
Oh, that's incredible. I used to, I'm from California, Los Angeles area, and I had a sport fisher that I had in the slip by my house, and loved going offshore tuna fishing and stuff like that. And little fun fact, in the 90s, early 90s, I was the top shark tagger in the country. I tagged more sharks than anybody else. And that was a lot of fun. And the cool thing is, when the sharks would get recaptured, they would send me an email and tell me where like the shark was and things like that. Excuse me. The longest distance I ever had a shark go was I tagged him in California, and he got re-caught and released in Hawaii.
That's awesome.
A mako shark. So fun little side story there. But yeah, I used to be really, really into fishing. But then I started businesses, and I didn't have time to fish anymore. So.
That's usually the way it works, because everyone asks us, they're like, oh, you must get to fish. I'm like, if you want to fish, do not open a store, and don't really open necessarily a business often, because usually you will not have time to do that anymore.
Yeah. We had a neighbor growing up who ran a high-end landscaping company, and his front yard was the worst on the street because he just never had time to do his own yard.
Yeah, we often joke about that with being in the contracting business. The contractor's house will have the most things undone in it because of that reason. You're
Yeah.
always working, and when you get home, the last thing you really want to do is work on it.
Right.
But when you do have that little bit of time, you do what you can. But yeah, it's comical.
Yeah, no, it is. It's I hear people like give advice is like, like make your job your passion and everything. And like I get that advice, but also if you really love doing something, I would say probably don't start a business in it because it's going to ruin it for you.
Oh, 100%. And that's kind of what I want. Everybody's like, oh, this must be cool. I'm like, it's a lot more work than what it looks like. I
Yeah.
was like, if you really enjoy it, don't get in it.
Yeah.
It's one of those. And really being in retail, I feel like once you sell like one item like what we do now, we really could transition that model almost into anything.
Yeah.
But I tell guys the same thing. I'm like, if it's your passion, don't get in it. I said it turns to work very quickly.
Yeah. It's funny because like here at FSU, like a lot of people know me as the coffee guy. So like whenever somebody like a student wants to start a coffee shop, they get sent to me. And I'm like, I'm the last person you want to talk to about opening a coffee shop because I still have PTSD from it. Yeah. And I'm like, I tell the students, I'm like, I don't want to be discouraging, but really like get into a business that has way larger margins and it doesn't have like an average ticket size of $5 because that's just you're going to work really, really hard. If you're going to work that hard, you might as well make some money at it.
Oh, 100%. And that's what I've told some other customers too. I've had a handful of guys come to me like, oh, do we want to open a store like this? And I say, you can do it. I said, just be aware of the work. And like you said, on the margin side, looking back on it, people often ask you like, oh, would you do retail again? And I'm like, I'm on the fence. To be honest, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm in it now and it's worked, but it's not something I would probably go out again and say, oh, I want to do retail again.
Yeah, I think like retail for people who want to be like lifestyle entrepreneurs and, they kind of just love being in that environment, like they just like talking to people and hanging out with people, then maybe the coffee business is a great business for them. But if they're trying to scale it and make some real money and make it a kind of a legacy business, that we would call the coffee business a red ocean. Like there's so much competition and there's so many people racing to the bottom on price. It's just a difficult business. Obviously Starbucks and Beats, like you can make money at it, but those are some gnarly competitors too to go up against.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, it's almost like Starbucks is almost like the Yeti model with the coolers. You had a ton of coolers, then Yeti took it and made it this really cool, exclusive, high-end item, and it scaled and it did really well. But that's like a 1 in a million shot that's going to happen. And in this business, it's the same way because you're not really manufacturing anything. So you're not making a product in the industry. You're just reselling someone else's product. And it's that's a challenge. And we found that early on, too, with going through COVID and some other things with how do you volume's about the only way you can make it because your margin's set.
Right.
And so scalability is very difficult. Customer loyalty is the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I always told my baristas that we don't serve coffee. We serve people. If we forget that, like we're not going to succeed because lots of people sell coffee. We have to serve coffee. We have to serve people and like remembering their name and remembering their drink are like huge things that matter to them and they become repeat customers. And that's the only way I think in retail to actually really be successful is to have a loyal fan base, repeat customers.
Oh, 100%. In the current market that we're in now, customer loyalty, I personally think is at an all-time low. Customers are not loyal to speak of. Right. I mean, you will always have that top 10% of your customer base that is extremely loyal, and we do have that as well. But other than that, it's very, very challenging to build that customer loyalty. You've really got to work hard. I mean, there's customers I've probably spent 8-12 hours with before I finally got to that relationship with them where they would come in and finally start to buy more and more and do these different things. But it's a lot of customer education time. You're spending a lot of face time. And like you said, you really have to have an extroverted personality to make those kinds of businesses work.
Yeah, totally.
Because you got to love to talk.
Yeah, you got to love to talk. Well, thank you for that insight. That was really interesting. Talking about challenges and stuff like that. If you're open to it, I'd love to hear like one of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your business and how you overcame it.
So opening during COVID was a big one for us. Our keyword was pivot. We pivoted like crazy during COVID. It made our capital outlay go up. In our industry structure, in the fishing industry, most shops start off as a distribution shop where you can buy all these products from one source. You pay a little bit more for them, but you don't have to go and make the capital outlay to write direct. COVID did not afford us that luxury. So what we had to do is sit down and make a list and go, okay, we would like to go direct with all of these brands because we're going to need them to make the margin and to get the product, because typically you could get it before a competitor could get it that was going through distribution.
Right.
And so having to sit down and make that list and to figure out not only which brands we wanted to sign, but also if they would sign us. One brand I remember we negotiated 6 months with to finally get them to come to the shop to be able to sign them. And that was a big challenge for us, was trying to determine how to make ourselves marketable to these brands, because they pretty much had to accept you. Now, once you get accepted by a couple major ones, you can start putting those on your credit apps and those kind of things, and things will start to fall in line. But trying to break that barrier was very challenging. And then during COVID, just you could go and sign a brand and write an order, but you might not see it for 8 months. And so you're trying to balance your cash flow, and you go, well, we've got this coming if it comes on time. Sometimes you might not see it for 12 or 16 months, even though they promised 8 months. And so that was one of our biggest struggles getting off the ground as a young business, was making it through COVID, just trying to get inventory. Once I got a case of inventory in, I could sell it in a matter of probably a day, if that. But then I wouldn't see the product again for 8 months.
Yeah.
Once it was gone.
No, that's really, really rough. It's funny, in one of my classes, one of the modules that we cover is essentially pitching to your suppliers and establishing your supply chain. And that module, I get more pushback from students thinking like, why do I have to like learn to pitch to a supplier and, and all these kind of things. And I'm like this, especially if you're new, the suppliers aren't going to extend you credit. You're not going to get net 30. You're definitely not going to get net 90. And you're basically asking them to give you a loan if you're paying on terms, and you have to convince them that you're a good bet, or they're not going to supply you. And just because they haven't lived it, they think like, well, I go to the store, I go to Walmart and I buy something, it's no big deal. So why isn't it the same in business? And I'm like, it's just different. Suppliers have premium customers that like have precedent over you, and they get better rates than you, and being able to speak with a supplier and pitch a supplier why you're like, you should be like their number one client and they should take care of you is actually really, really important.
Oh, it's challenging, and it's very cliquey. It's almost like being back in high school.
Yeah.
There's certain vendors, if you don't know the rep, the barrier to entry is nearly impossible to climb, because the rep's the gatekeeper. Because you call the company and they're going to say, oh, you need to speak to your local rep. If you can't get your local rep to pick up the telephone, it's a done game. You've got to try to find a way to get to that rep some way, somehow. And dealer shows and things like that help. The fly industry is the world's worst about it. Half the time the reps won't call you back. And if you can get on the phone with them, trying to get them to move is very, very challenging. They like to do things with friends. They don't like to do new businesses and those kinds of things. And so trying to convince them. Now, once you sign your first couple big brands, you can say, hey, look, this is what I've got. This is what I'm selling already. They'll listen to you. But trying to crack that egg to get those first one or two big ones, it's it'll make you bang your head against the wall. And there was one brand, I texted the rep once a week. I'm like, hey, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? And did it consistently until finally I got an answer. And it took some time. And one of the brands we were told we would never be able to sign. They said, you'll never get this brand.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you said that. I'm actually going to make my students watch like this part of the podcast during that module, because they always push back and just say like, well, if I have money, like, obviously they're going to supply me. And I'm like, it's not that simple.
No, there are some of the brands, which you also have dealer radiuses if you're coming into an area that's especially saturated. Like in our business, I would hate to open a store in South Florida. You go down US 1 in certain parts through Boca and places like that, there's 5 shops within a mile.
Right.
So whoever has that dealer radius, which anymore dealer radiuses don't seem to matter as much as they did pre-COVID, but still certain large brands, they have dealer radiuses. And so if you're trying to open within another dealer's dealer radius, you have to be able to convey to them why you should be open. But you could have all the money in the world and they'll still tell you no. The money part writing the order is the easy part. Getting that credit app into accounting and getting it accepted is the hardest part of that. And then after that, you can look down. The order writer is really the easiest part.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good word. This podcast is called the Innovation Mindset, and I've actually written a book called the CEO Mindset Reset. And what I found is a lot of times, I call it the dirt principle. Entrepreneurs who are also CEOs sometimes get so much in the weeds, they forget why they went into business in the first place. I call it the dirt principle because I tell this little story of, like, imagine that there was a big pile of dirt and you were just moving the dirt from one place to another. After a while, it would seem really pointless. But if somebody came up and reminded you that you were clearing the road for an ambulance that was going to replace a child's heart or your child's heart, like, that brings meaning to that task. And so as far as mindset kind of things, like, do you do any mindset practices, or what keeps you focused on your main thing and keeps you driving?
So it is easy to get stuck in the weeds, and being an accounting mindset from coming out of the accounting business school here, it's very easy to get lost in numbers. And there's a lot of times that I have to push away from the table, take a minute and breathe and go, okay, does this really matter? It's like I was looking at ordering something the other day, and I had a rep that was pushing me hard saying, hey, you need to order X, Y, and Z, you need to order. And I said, time out. Took a step back, looked at it. I said, in the grand scheme of things, I said, you're not talking really any money, but same thing with the mindset of being in the business. You get in there and you get in this grind, and you just put your head down. You say, got to work hard, got to work hard, got to work hard. And if you're not careful and you don't step and take a look back, we were actually talking about this yesterday, you'll say, well, I'm making all this cash. I've got all this cash flow coming in, but you're actually really not making anything because you're paying it out just as fast.
Right.
And if you don't take a step back and just say, I need to look at everything. I need to take a breather. Why am I here? Reassess goals. Goals to me are a very big thing. That's what I do mentally, is I set goals. What I have to be careful of is not jumping goal to goal, where I'll climb a hill, get to a goal and say, that was great, moving on to the next one kind of deal, and not basking in that for a minute that we got there.
Not taking any time to celebrate.
But it's a big mindset, especially once you get into it. We're going into our 7th year.
Right.
And looking back, you're like, wow, we covered a lot of time. It doesn't seem like that long, but you do. You got to kind of realign yourself and make sure you're still tracking in the direction that you want to go and that you're not just treading water.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, in the podcast, I always like to end the podcast asking my guest one question. And the question is, if you could go back to 2019 before you opened your company and you were allowed to tell yourself one thing, what would you tell yourself?
So I would say stay true to the course. That is something for us. We have developed a kind of a slogan in-house that we use in the store, where we'll say, we may just not be your store. It was very hard early on to have customers come in. We had customers that would come in. I remember having a gentleman look me dead in the eye and say, you're going to fail. This is not going to work. It's not going to sell. And that's very discouraging to a young entrepreneur that just spent all this money and opened this business. But stay true to your goals. Now, that's not to say you can't change those, but like now with our high-end market we go after, we're all in on that. We're not changing up. We've kind of set our course and say, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. We'll do the best to help any customer that we can. But trends in our particular industry, trends are terrible. Guys, TikTok has been the worst foe in our industry because guys will see something on TikTok and run over to it and buy tons of it, and then they'll drop it and never buy another piece of it. And so if you follow these trends and other things, you'll end up sitting on all this dead inventory if you're not careful, which will have a ton of capital tied up in it. So if I could probably say one thing starting over, it would just be stay true, do what you're good at, and don't get distracted.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time coming in. And do you do any e-commerce?
So that's actually something we're looking into for 27.
Okay.
2027, we're actually working on the back end right now to get our e-commerce up and running. So the goal for that is Q1 of 27.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, if any of you guys are interested in high-end fishing gear and concierge service, we'll have all in the show notes. We'll have all the links for you to go to. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Innovation Mindset podcast powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Hey, if you like this episode, please drop us a like and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another amazing episode. We'll see you next time.